is called Familia, so tell us about it and why you named it that.
Well, I think that, you know, at the beginning of this album, I was having such a hard time, like mental health-wise. I just had like,
a lot of us, the last 2 years especially.
Totally. I think for me, it started even before the last 2 years.
Yeah, well then the last 2 years didn't help.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
It was like kind of just like, I think, just crippling anxiety that was really hard for me. And I feel like because I was in that place, I isolated a lot, and I felt like I wasn't really, I don't know, I felt like, I wrote this line in my album, Thank Yous, but I felt like I almost needed to be kind of healed or in a better place before I let myself be seen or let myself hang out with people and be vulnerable and be myself. Yeah. And I feel like this album...
I relate to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like this album to me was me being like, really trusting people, starting with, you know, obviously it's about like my actual real family and like the roots of that, but also I feel like the kind of family that I made while making this album and opening myself up to friendships and community, and even with my collaborators in the studio, like being vulnerable about what I was feeling. And
you're very vulnerable. I heard you allow them to like read like your like journal and stuff. You let them read stuff, right?
Well, I wouldn't be like, you know, you have access to my diary.
Oh God, because I'm like, nope.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
But I would like at the beginning every day, I would like write in a journal, and then I would just like read it to Scott, and then we'd be like, oh, that's a cool line. Like I feel like we could, you know, write a song based on this lyric or whatever. So the whole thing for me was really like, I need to be real and vulnerable with the people, like while I'm in the studio, because sometimes I felt like even being in the studio, like it felt sometimes performative for me. Like I want to prove that I'm a good writer. I want to prove that I'm good. And this time for me was all about, you know, Scott, here's like
where I'm at.
The worst part of like where my thoughts go.
Yeah.
And I feel like that made like my favorite music that I've made. And also I feel like my collaborators became like my brothers in the studio, and starting to be open with people, like with the collaborators and like in the studio process, extended its way into my real life, where suddenly I was like, oh, I could be like really anxious and still hang out with my friend and just tell them about my anxiety instead of being like, let me cancel because...
Well, because they're not rolling in perfect either.
No.
They probably got their own baggage,
And I felt like in my mind, maybe it's because I was young, I felt like everybody just did have it more together than I did.
Yeah. And I think everyone goes through that. We all feel that,
And then you grow up and you're like, everybody up.
Everyone is screwed.
Yeah.
It's like, we're all in therapy.
Yeah.